If you play a lever harp, then no doubt you're familiar with the experience of wanting to play sheet music that's not written for lever harp. Maybe it's piano, maybe it's pedal harp, and there's just way too many accidentals. Sharps, flats, naturals, all over the place. And what are you supposed to do with that? I'm Samantha, welcome back to the Harp Studio, and I'm very familiar with this struggle, and I've even made a whole course about how to arrange music to suit your own harp, and that includes making it lever harp friendly. So today I'm going to show you how to deal with those pesky accidentals and make that sheet music actually playable. So when you see an accidental in your sheet music, that means that if you want to play that note, you're going to have to flip a lever on your lever harp to change the pitch of that string. And in order to be able to do that, the note needs to meet 3 requirements. First, it must be a note that you can play with your current tuning, unless you feel like retuning your harp. So make note of all the notes you can play with all your levers flipped down, as well as all the notes you can play with the levers flipped up. If the note you need doesn't fall in that group, you might be able to use an enharmonic spelling instead. Enharmonics are notes that are the same pitch, but they have a different name, and in this case, they would be played on a different string. For the most part, a sharp and the flat, the note name above it, are enharmonics. So F sharp is the same as G flat, and A sharp is the same as B flat. The exceptions to this rule are B and C and E and F, which are only a semitone apart, so that means that B sharp becomes C, F flat becomes E, but you don't really need to memorize all the theory. I'm just going to have a list of enharmonics up on the screen, so you can just reference that. If you can't play the pitch on your harp and you can't use an enharmonic spelling, you might want to consider transposing the piece to a different key or leaving that note out altogether. Requirement number 2 is there has to be enough time for the left hand to reach up and flip that lever. So that means there's got to be a rest or a long enough note in the arrangement for the left hand to make that move. Requirement number 3 is that you've got to be able to change the lever at a time where it's not going to interfere with any notes that come before it that are on the same string. So for example, if I need a B flat here in this measure, and I need a B natural, the measure before, I can't change this B to a B flat in this measure here, because then this B natural is going to be a B flat as well, and then that's not correct. So either I would need to change this lever maybe in this measure, but I wouldn't be able to change the lever in advance. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes it's not. This might also prevent you from using an enharmonic spelling. So for example, if you needed an A sharp and a B natural in quick succession in the same measure, then you might not be able to use a B flat in place of the A sharp. So if the note in question fits those requirements, you've got lots of time in the left hand to change the lever, great, no problem. You can just play that note as written, do your lever change, everything's fine. But if it doesn't, that's okay. You can still make your piece playable on your harp. You're just going to need to get a little bit more creative. So when you've got a problem accidental, you've got a few options. If there's not enough time to change the lever in the left-hand part where the note is happening, look further back in the score and try to find a place where you can change that lever because the left hand has the time and it's not going to interfere with any notes in between the time that the lever is changed and when the note is actually played. So in this example, you can see I need an A flat here. The left hand is super busy with all these eighth notes. So if I just look back onto the previous line, I've got a half note here. So there's time for me to change this A flat here, as well as a B flat that I need on the next line. And if we just kind of look through, are there any other notes on that same A through here? No, there's not. And there's no B's before this one either. So we're good to go there. If you can't find a nice convenient place like that, then you can actually alter the left-hand part to have less notes you need to play and make time to change the lever. So for example, I need this C sharp right here on middle C. This is in the treble clef, so this is middle C. And if I look back, the next time that there's a rest or long enough time to change a lever would be in this bar here. But let's check, are there any middle C's in between here and when I need to play it? The C sharp here? Yes, there is. There's one right here. So I cannot change the C sharp in this bar right here. So there's a couple things you can do. So again, this is where you have to get creative. There's not one correct answer. It's just kind of like moving things around, trying to solve the puzzle until you get something that works. So a couple options. We could take this C out. So we could make this into a half note perhaps. So I could change the middle C here, or I could now change it in this bar because I've made some time here. You could also make this like even less going on in this bar. So I could just do a bass note here, or I could do like a rolled chord instead. So instead of playing the notes separately as eighth notes, I'm going to play them all at once as a rolled chord. And then I've got lots of time here to change a lever or to do it before. Either of that works. And it doesn't have to be this bar either. Like it could be, you could do the same thing here. You could do the same thing here. It kind of doesn't matter. You can sort of rewrite, like if now you feel like the left hand is too empty, you can maybe change which notes you're using or change some of the surrounding measures so that it sounds a little more cohesive. But the point is, you can absolutely change what's going on in the left hand to make time for a lever change. Sometimes you can also change the octave that you're playing the note in as well as the surrounding notes so that it's no longer on a string that's going to interfere with notes around it, or maybe to eliminate an additional lever change that you might need otherwise. So for example, in this case, we've got a G sharp here. There's also a C sharp. We're not going to worry about that for a second, but we need a G sharp here. We need a G sharp here. We need a G sharp here. That's a lot of sharps. Then they're all in different strings. So what I can do is if I take this whole measure and I move it up an octave, now this G, sorry if you don't like ledger lines, but this G on the third ledger line is the same as this G. So now I only need to change 2 G levers instead of 3. So that might make it easier for me. If you can't find any way to get around your accidental note, you can also just remove it. Or honestly, even if you just don't feel like doing that many levers, it's okay, just don't play it, just take it out, it's fine. When this is happening in the left hand or inside of a chord, this is usually pretty simple, you can just take it out. So in the same spot here, if I only want to have to change 1 G sharp, then maybe I just don't play this G at all, and I take out this one as well. So I could take out this one that's inside the chord, and I could take this out, so then that leaves me with a bit of a weird thing here, but maybe I just go up to the A here and get rid of these 2 notes, and then that's the whole bar. I could also like put this back down the octave then if I don't have to worry about the G sharp. That would be fine. I could also turn this into a long note, put it there, whatever, doesn't really matter. So that would be one option. Then I just have to deal with 1 G sharp. That's not too bad. Removing a note can be a little bit more complicated when it's in the melody, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. A really common example of this is in green sleeves. The way a lot of people will play green sleeves sounds like this. Now, for one reason or another, you might not want to deal with that accidental in the melody. So what a lot of people will do, if you have any of the Sylvia Woods books, what she tends to do is just repeat notes in place of the accidental note. So this way, without just removing the G sharps, replacing it with repeating a different melody note. That's what that sounds like. So does it sound a little bit different? Yes, it does, but it still sounds pretty good, I think. There are definitely going to be times where removing a note does make the song sound noticeably different, but sometimes there are going to be accidentals that are really hard to deal with, or maybe you just don't have any levers on your harp, or you don't have a lever on the string that you need for this particular moment. But at the end of the day, I kind of feel that to make something playable on lever harp, especially if it's very chromatic and there's a lot of accidentals, sometimes you kind of have to make some sacrifices in order to make it playable. And so with that, you can make a lot of songs playable on your lever harp. It really is just kind of a puzzle and like finding where can you fit everything. It's almost like playing Tetris in a way. There's definitely a limit to how many lever changes you can accommodate, but I always say never when it comes to trying to make a lever harp version of something, because if you're creative enough, you just might be able to find a way. Now, if you want to go deeper and learn how to arrange the songs that you love the most for your harp without needing to know a ton of complicated music theory, check out my Arranging for Harpist course. There's a link in the description, or you can check out this video next to make the sheet music you've bought easier to play. Thanks for watching, and happy harping!